Tommy Kissinger here with Tommy's Truth Talk. Thank you once again so much for joining us. This is going to be the Tension in Creation number 13, and we have been reading from this writing by Dr. Stephen Jones. The larger work is called Creation's Jubilee, and the Tension in Creation is a chapter inside of this larger work. So we have been addressing good and evil as we have been reading through Stephen's writings here. This is such a necessary thing to understand. It's a stumbling block for so many people, good and evil. And they really look at it as though God is fighting against evil and is out of his control and he's hoping to win in the end. But when you understand the higher purpose and plan of God, and when you understand the sovereignty of God, you understand that God created good and evil, and that God uses good and evil to bring about the desired end, his higher intention, his plan and his purpose for all of humanity, which is an ultimate restoration of all things, and we are to learn and to be taught along the way. So let's pick up where we left off, and this is entitled Good Out of Evil. And so before we start, I'm just asking if you would hit that thumbs up button, like the video. If you have not subscribed to the channel, if you would please consider doing so. Thank you so very much. Good out of evil. Even in the first few ages of time, when evil has the appearance of ascendancy and power, its power is only an illusion. Evil itself is real, at least on the earthly level, but it is only a precursor to good. Even as the liver uses beta-carotene to manufacture vitamin A, so also does God use evil to create good. It is all a part of God's plan in order to reveal to those who know his ways how God can and does turn all evil into good. So think of this on a higher level. God is showing and demonstrating to all of creation that he can turn all evil into good. Think of the greatest evil of all time, that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, was crucified, that he was killed, he was murdered at the hands of sinful men. He never committed any sin, but was murdered. What did God do with that evil? He turned it into the greatest good that humanity will ever come to know, and that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Well, there is probably the best example of it that we could bring up. So God turns all evil into good. This is called the judgments of the law. The judgments of the law are a necessary evil in order to bring ultimate good to the general populace. A nation must have just laws with judgments for their infraction in order to maintain stability and discourage injustices against one another. So it is with the laws of God. We have also seen that God's judgments are given for the purpose of rehabilitating the sinner. How important is this for us to grasp as the sons and daughters of God? That all of his judgments are given for the purpose of rehabilitating the sinner. Ladies and gentlemen, especially Christians, hear this. God's judgments are for the purpose of rehabilitating the sinner, not to just inflict pain or unending torture or to just hurt someone for all of eternity. No, God is corrective. He's corrective. He's corrective. How many times have I said this over the years, over and over again? Our God is corrective and not vindictive. When the court demands that the thief pay his victim double restitution, it is not only to recompense the victim for his loss, but also to teach the thief to work rather than to steal. This allows the sinner to pay his debt to the victim, giving the sinner a sense of accomplishment and forgiveness. This is why it is of the greatest importance that the system not cripple him either physically or socially that would prevent him from working. One of the worst injustices of the judicial system today is that when inmates are released from prison, They often find it very difficult to find work. Society never really forgives them for their sin because they have not given the sinner opportunity to pay restitution for his crime. We criticize the Muslims for chopping off a thief's hand because we say it is cruel. The Bible's concern is that it handicaps him in finding lawful employment in the future. Yet because we do not seem to share the Bible's concern in this important matter, we handicap him socially, if not physically. This is a sin that is perpetrated upon the sinners. So let's keep on going here. There are, of course, certain sins where man's law enforcement is incapable of bringing good out of evil. That is why God instituted the death penalty for sins for which man cannot restore the lawful order or repay restitution to the victims. For example, first-degree murder or kidnapping. Such sins must usually await a higher court at the last judgment, where resurrection restores life to the murder victim and where it is finally possible for even the worst sinners to pay restitution for all capital crimes. In that day, it will prove to be not a problem for God to right all wrongs and more so to bring good out of evil. A truly godly court here on earth would be one that seeks the good of both victim and sinner in every possible case. That's what God's all about, ladies and gentlemen. He is a God that seeks the good of both victim and sinner in every possible case. That's what the judgment of God is about. That's what his justice is all about. There are also some cases where appeals are made to the higher court of God in this present age without having to await the final judgment at the great white throne. David, for example, committed both murder and adultery, but his case was judged directly by God because David repented and appealed the case to him directly. God did judge David with wars and family troubles for the rest of his life. It was a lake of fire to him, a second death, but well worth it in the long run. His present evil was turned into good, for David understood the purpose of God's judgments. In submitting to the judgment and purification of God in this age, David avoided judgment in the next age, and God called him a man after his own heart. That's 1 Samuel 13:14. At the great white throne judgment, the law will go forth to right all the wrongs that remain in a state of tension. Yet even here, it serves a dual purpose: to recompense the victim and to teach the sinner righteousness. Let's hear that again. God's judgment, whether now or to come, is always about to recompense the victim and to teach the sinner righteousness. It gives justice to the victim and forgives the sinner. So we'll stop there for now. And just very important that we understand what is going on as God brings good out of evil, and that God created good and evil, and that God is always about making things right for the victim and forgiving and rehabilitating or correcting the sinner or that party that is involved in wrongdoing. That is what our Heavenly Father is all about. We have to see the character and nature of our God, that it is one of correction and not just that God needs to be vindicated or that God is vindictive. God is a loving Father, and that is what his law and his judgment is all about. So let us rejoice in knowing that God is in complete control of good and evil, and that he created it, and he's using it as a tool in his hand to bring about the desired end, the ultimate restoration of all things. He's going to resolve all of the tension in creation.